Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, Episode 526, Communication and Perspective. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I'll continue with We Got a Job to Do. Here, I look at our environment, what's going on with it in terms of problems and possible solutions. Then it's on to communication and perspective. Here, I look at how we communicate and how we see ourselves, both in terms of society and the imaginary territories. Today's show will feature background footage from Black Balsam. Black Balsam is located near the Blue Ridge Parkway. To get there, take the Blue Ridge Parkway heading south from Asheville, North Carolina. About 10 miles past US 276, Black Balsam Road goes off to the right. Well, maybe it's closer to 5 miles, but whatever. Anyway, Black Balsam Road is shortly after Graveyard Fields Overlook. So you take a right on Black Balsam Road and you go up to the top of the hill and park. The trail goes off to the right. The trail will split, stay to the left on the Art Loeb Trail to reach the summit of Black Balsam Knob and beyond. So now, let's continue with We Got a Job to Do. Because agriculture uses a lot of water. And sometimes the water's just not there, especially in situations of drought, such as in the West, where they have had a prolonged drought, and the Colorado River is drying up, and many interests are fighting for water rights, from agricultural to urban use. Well, as I said, agricultural use takes a lot of water, but I guess so does urban use, especially if the water is wasted. So we have to look at this. Do we really need all those fountains in Las Vegas, or all these golf courses that need lots of water, or lots of green lawns that need water? Well, if you live in a desert, perhaps you need less of all that and more desert. So you'll use less water, for water needs to be conserved, especially in the desert and in drought situations. But anyway, so we look at agricultural runoff affecting our rivers, our soil being depleted by excessive farming, these industrial farms replacing family farms, genetically modified organisms being deployed in agricultural situations, in both plants and animals, from GMO fish being raised on factory farms to GMO soybeans that resist herbicide. Sure, a lot of things need to change. We need to use less herbicide and less insecticide. Sure, we need seeds that could truly reproduce themselves like they should, instead of Terminator seeds sold by Monsanto. Seeds that will grow but do not produce any viable seeds for the future. So you have to keep on buying new seeds from Monsanto. When you really need to have seeds that are viable, that will grow up and reproduce, produce new seeds that are viable and will grow into the next generation. Sure, we need more family farms and less industrial farms. We need to get a handle on big agriculture and regulate it. We need to break up Monsanto. We need to give farmers a choice of what chemicals and other things to use. They shouldn't have to sign contracts just to get seeds or hens or whatever they're producing. They should be able to produce things independently and doing things their own way. Farms should be smaller, not bigger. Anyway, moving along here. We have to have empathy with the ocean. The ocean's being overfished. And the ocean's becoming more acidic. This is affecting coral reefs. Many coral reefs are dying off. And in turn, so are the wildlife, the fish that is around the coral reefs. So I guess it's several things. The ocean getting more acidic and warmer that's killing off these coral reefs. And there might be other factors too. Perhaps biological agents. But the coral reefs are dying, and along with the fish around them. The oceans are being overfished in many areas, leading to a collapse of the ocean ecosystem and a collapse of livelihoods of fishermen. Sometimes commercial interests are allowed to overfish and leaving little fish left for everyone else. The fish needs to be distributed more equitably so everyone, from commercial interest to fishermen to recreational fishermen, from big commercial to small commercial to recreational, everybody needs to have enough fish. So no one should take too much fish out of the ocean or out of streams and lakes. Wherever fish populations might be low, we need to pay attention to that and reduce fishing to allow them to recover. So, we have to think of the air too and have empathy with the air. For there's air pollution. Well, pollution in the water too. Pollution on the land. And, of course, global warming from excessive CO2 emissions and excessive methane emissions and other greenhouse gases. So the global warming, well, is creating a lot of problems. It's creating flooding. It's creating devastating hurricanes that occur more frequently. I have experienced Hurricane Helene, which was truly devastating. A life-changing event for me and many other people affected by it. I guess everyone affected by it. It was truly terrible. Sure, many homes lost. People have lost their lives. Communities destroyed. water that is almost 30 feet above the normal level of the river or creek, taking out houses, and much more. A truly horrific event, Hurricane Helene, back in September 2024. So, we have to think of all this. But what do we do about it? Well, we got a job to do. Now that we know why we have to do the job and what the elements might be, well, now we need to start actually doing something. We could always protest. We could protest, especially at anything that is really going to harm our planet. Perhaps a new coal plant being built, a new oil pipeline. Perhaps we could protest factory farms taking over our county. Or we could protest over water quality issues, air quality, and many other things. We need to make our voices heard. Well, I guess we always could write or call our congressmen and other elected officials. We need to contact our elected officials and let them know how we feel about the environment and how important the environment really is. We could even run for office ourselves, perhaps at the county level or local level, or at the state or federal level if we think we're qualified. We need to do a lot. We really need to let our elected officials know how we feel. If we see something that's horrible, perhaps we can complain about it to our state Department of Environmental Quality. Sure, we need to let officials know, that is, regulatory officials in our county, or as I said, the state environmental quality office, know about things, perhaps like a chemical spill in a river, for an example, or other events that seem to be bad. Let's say a big dump load of trash along the road, or whatever it is. If it's there and it looks bad, we need to let people know about it, who could do something about it to clean it up, whether it's a chemical spill or a bunch of dumped trash or whatever. We need to do it ourselves. We can't always call it in. Sometimes our government offices might be overwhelmed, or they might have, more important things to deal with, or what they think are more important. So what's important to us might be what's around us. So perhaps cleaning up our local river, our local beach, the land around us, whatever's around us, it needs to be cleaned up. Perhaps picking up litter along the roadside, picking up litter here and there, in parking lots, as I said, along rivers and streams, along beaches, wherever there's too much litter, it needs to be picked up. Sure. Things need to be cleaned up. We all need to pitch in. We need to reduce and reuse and recycle. We need to do all of that. We need to do a lot. Because we need to save Mother Earth. After all, we got a job to do. Now it is time for communication and perspective. Here, I look at how we communicate and how we see ourselves, both in society and in terms of the imaginary territories. Imaginary territories of thought governed by our value system. So let's talk about the more mundane first. How we see ourselves, how we communicate, and how we kind of fit in with the rest of society. So, communication is, well, one thing. And with AI on the rise and artificial intelligence dominating more of our lives in the future, well, maybe not dominating our lives, let's just say we're using it more and relying on it more in the future. There. Anyway, so we're using AI more in the future. Well, because of that, that will take more of our time, and we might have less time for communication between ourselves or amongst ourselves. We might communicate more with AI and communicate with each other less. And then there's perspective, how we see ourselves. Well, with a little less communication amongst ourselves, perspective might be a little more elusive. It might be harder to figure out our perspective or what our perspective should be, how we should see things, or even other people's perspective. I mean, as I said, we might be communicating with artificial intelligence more. And artificial intelligence might not be good at the nuances of human feelings and prioritization. You know, how we set our priorities. Anyway, so I'm kind of thinking about how we see ourselves, what we value, how we adapt to change, things like that. So, we have to think about this, our perspective, because how we see things might not always get communicated. So it gets a little tricky. Perspective can be complicated. Well, and that's why it's important to communicate it, to get a good understanding of it. But there's a lot of variation here on how you see yourself, your family, your job, your significant other, your friends, and so on. So all of this changes moment to moment and day to day, how you see yourself, how you see your job, and so on and so on. And it's nice to understand how other people might see things in similar situations. And then, of course, there's, the perspective of how to deal with loss of a family member, loss of a lifetime partner, loss of an important career, and other things. How do we pick up the pieces? Can we pick up the pieces? Yeah, and it all depends on how much emphasis you give these things and how you see them. And even if there is a lot of emphasis on them, even if they're very central in your life, such as your career or your life partner, once you lose one or the other, well, can you recover? Can you pick up the pieces? Can you find another partner or another career? Well, I guess it depends on many factors. It's all very complicated. I guess what I'm getting at is, can you reset yourself readily? Can you adapt and adjust to new situations and new perspectives? You just might have to in a situation of a major loss, and in other situations as well, especially those involving significant changes, such as changing where you live or your career and other major changes. So, we move along in life, and communication and perspective is important. Sure, we should understand how other people see things. A variety of people, from our friends, family, and others. By understanding their perspective, it might help us understand our perspective. However, I always encourage forming your perspective, well, kind of independently. That is, forming it to suit your own needs and situation, instead of trying to adjust your perspective to what you think somebody else would like you to think or see. Don't adjust your perspective to what you think others should see you as or would like to see you as. Your perspective should function for your happiness, for your comfort, for efficiency in life, adjustment to change, and supporting the things that you love. That's what your perspective should be about. Not being about what other people want it to be. Well, that could be factored in too, I guess. But you always have to think of yourself first. Sure. At least that's the way I see it. Sure, you have to take care of yourself before you could help others. Anyway, so life moves on. Well, that's enough about us and society. What about us and imaginary territories? Imaginary territories of thought, governed by our value system. As our values change, our imaginary territory that we are associated with changes. So we are associated with the imaginary territory that closest matches our values, our morals, our attitudes, perspectives, and so on. So the why we do things is real important here. Sure, what guides our decision? Well, that will determine what imaginary territory we are from. Well, where I'm from, the East Side, well, we value sharing information, especially especially sharing information with those who need it the most and might have difficulty finding or understanding the information. Sure, I guess I'm talking about things to help consumers, say things to help with one's health, and other things. The East Side, well, they value empathy and compassion, and finding a life partner with a good personality and similar perspectives to theirs, and staying with that partner for a long time. The East Side values truth over deception. And, well, see things in kind of a loving way. The West Side, well, likes competition, and the West Side likes deception. To use deception in competition to get ahead. The West Side would like a life partner who looks good in society, whether it's because of their wealth or how they look or their athletic ability or whatever. And as soon as they don't look good anymore, it's on to someone else. Long-term partners aren't important. It's who makes you look good that's important. Sure. So that's the perspective of the West Side. And the West Side doesn't like to share information, especially with those people who might need it, because that way they can deceive them more readily, such as corporations ripping off consumers and making more of a profit because of that. That's the West Side. Anyway, moving along. North is extrovert, South is introvert. Most people are kind of in the middle, in the central region, and so on and so on. So, how does communication and perspective fit into all of this? Well, gee, I guess it depends which imaginary territory you are from. And it probably depends on other factors, such as who you are, and how you do things, and blah, blah, blah. But with me, oh, it's all easy. It's
Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, caseywaters2@caseywaters.com.